We're going to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for May 20th to order. The first item on our agenda is BL 2013-431, sponsors Matthews, adopts the operating budget for the Metropolitan Government for fiscal year 2013-2014. And I'm asking for approval and re-referral to Budget and Finance Committee. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. It says bill on public hearing, but we're not supposed to have a public hearing, are we? Here. Okay, good. RS, on the resolutions, RS 2013-522, sponsors Duval, Matthews, and others, authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to exercise options to purchase 2 adjacent parcels of property located at 3132 and 3142 Smith Springs Road for the benefit of the Board of Public Education. It's been properly moved and seconded. There is a proposed amendment. Do we have to move the amendment?
If it's
first
to be considered,
Let's consider the amendment first. And Councilman Duval, have you proposed the amendment?
well,
Who proposed?
it's from the administration. It's up. You
Okay.
want to explain it?
Yeah, John. Ms. Cooper, if you could explain the amendment.
The
first.
option contracts that were attached to the original resolution that was being approved or to be approved when it was submitted, those options have expired, and there are new option agreements for 120 days. So this amendment would add the new option agreements to the resolution.
Okay. The amendment's been moved and seconded. In discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor? All opposed? The amendment passes. Now we're back onto the bill as amended. And do you want to renew your motion, Councilman? Been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Duval.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like the committee to defer this for 2 meetings so we can arrange a public hearing for the residents in that area so that they can come before this council and the 3 committees that are impacted and state specifically have the opportunity to speak, not write questions down where we pick and choose what questions are answered, but allow the people to speak. So I'm asking for a deferral for 2 meetings.
All right, Councilman Duval will certainly take that into consideration. Council Lady Berry.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually on the deferral motion. I know that the council lady...
There's no motion.
There was no motion,
No
okay.
member of the committee has made a motion.
Okay,
yet.
thank you.
Was there a member of the committee that would like to entertain Councilman Duval's request? I have a motion. Is there a second?
Fails for lack of a second.
Huh?
Fails for lack of a second.
Fails for lack of a second. So are we back on the motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We're back onto the motion to approve. See, Councilman Tiger?
Yes, I know there was a meeting last Thursday night or so that the school board held. Could I ask either the district council member or someone who attended to sort of give us a recap of the outcome and the tone of that meeting?
Is there anyone besides Councilman, would you like to speak to Councilman Tiger's question? Councilman Duval, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, if there's no one else, I'll be happy to.
There's someone from schools here too. That would you like for
Clay,
Mr. Clay?
you want to talk about the meeting? You were here. Step on up there. And if you don't mind, I'll expand on his conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council, and Councilman Duval for letting me speak about this. There was a second community meeting held last Thursday night. It was well attended. There were about 75 to 100 people there. They got to hear a presentation from the board member of that district, Will Pinkston, who walked through the slides and explained the history of the project, ways that we as MMPS are going to improve things in the future, improvements that have been made to the site to address some of the concerns that they brought up, and then a good bit of opportunity for them to express both to Will Pinkston as their school board representative and Councilman Duvall as their council representative, their concerns so that they may be able to bring them back to you.
Okay, Councilman Duvall, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, the folks in attendance were overwhelmingly from the immediate area impacted and were overwhelmingly in opposition of the plan as it existed. There were a lot of valuable and viable questions, inquiries that were made. I believe that it would warrant this body to hear from these people. They're not a bunch of wild people that are emotional. They're asking good, valid, educated questions. Many of them have learned a lot about the process. And I believe it would benefit this particular council, because this one school issue is not going to go away. This one may be passed through, but every time we build a school, we're going to find ourselves up against the wall if we continue to allow the process that is in place to go forward. So we've got to find a better way to do that, and I think the chairman of this committee, chairman of the education committee, and the chairman of planning all could play a vital role in our school planning in the future. And we won't need to go through these matters, or at least we know what the real cost of building a school is for that neighborhood. So I will renew my request. I know it doesn't do any good, but I will.
All right, thank you. Councilman Tiger, did that satisfy your request? All right. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of the emails that I have received have dealt with concerns about traffic and the narrowness of the existing road. Could we have someone from schools address possibilities for solving that issue?
Yes, Mr. Murdoch is here.
Thank you. On the issue of traffic, we worked with Public Works, and at their recommendation, we consulted with a traffic consulting firm, RPM. They did a full traffic study of the site, and based on their evaluation, they looked at the traffic on Smith Springs Road, the various roads, Anderson Roads and others that tie into it, and they evaluated delays and timing and daily trips based on the elementary school being there. Their conclusion was that the elementary school would have minimal impact on the total traffic and the turn times that exist today. That was submitted to Public Works, and Public Works concurred with the traffic study. We also had our civil engineer take that and look at access to the property and suggested and created a full-length turn lane that runs several hundred feet onto the property, and created separate entrances and exits to the property to minimize traffic at any one point, but also to maximize sight distances. It's near a curve, and we're making sure that we have the adequate sight distance turning in and exiting the property. So those studies were done and indicated traffic would be acceptable within expectations and minimally different from what exists today. We also looked at safety, which is a concern. And that's addressed partly in and near the site by the fact that we are widening the road, we're adding the turn lane, and we're adding sidewalks. And we also had the fire department look at the site and evaluate if they saw any concerns at getting emergency vehicles to the school and beyond. And they have indicated that they are comfortable that the site is acceptable and is comparable to schools all over town that are on two-lane roads.
Does that satisfy Councilor Allen? Thank you. Councilman Duvall.
Thank you. I don't want to be misled by added sidewalk. The sidewalk's in front of the school. That's all the sidewalk you have. It's a dead-end, winding, two-lane road. The answer to not making the children walk, which originally was the plan to make them walk to school with no consideration for the safety of those children, now is they will bus, they will waive everybody and put them on buses, which does nothing but create even more congestion, which is the second biggest issue in that particular area. Right now, from Bell Road, almost all the way back to old Smith Springs Road, is a 20 to 25 minute wait for anybody who commutes out of there, and all we're going to do is convolute that. I've not been able to get my hands on a traffic study, but there was a condominium complex put in about 10 years ago called Smith Springs Condominiums. And at that time, that same intersection was rated a D. Now we're going to add 1,800 students into that same area, and it's all of a sudden become a C. I think we have some homework still to do. And I think the citizens out there, voices need to be heard by this council to understand the sincerity. These are not a group of people that are anti-local schools or neighborhood schools. Thank you. Thank you for the latitude you give me, Lionel. Thank you.
You're fine, Councilman Duval. Councilor Evans.
If I could, somebody from schools, this building, the school building, well, it says there's 400 students in the neighborhood. What is the design capacity of the building, of the schools, and what's the estimated growth, Mr. Clay or Mr. Murdoch?
The elementary school that is anticipated there has a maximum of 800 students.
Okay, and what is the 5-year growth projection?
I'd have to let someone from student assignment address that.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Larry Collier in the Student Assignment Office. Currently, Lakeview Elementary is at 130 some odd % capacity.
Could you put that in terms of human beings, please?
Lakeview is designed for 689 children. They have 865 at this point and are projected to be right at 900 next year. In 5 years, they'll be likely around 1,000, over 140% of their capacity.
Okay, do you have a 5-year projection, or are you guesstimating?
No,
okay.
no, we've got it. I don't know if I've got it with me. Ryan, did you bring it? Five-year capacity shows it to be at 138% of their capacity.
Okay.
And how many students is there? Where does that say?
975 students.
Okay, so almost 1,000, and that's 5 years, okay.
Yes.
All right, and Edison?
Edison is currently their current enrollment is 684 with a capacity of 608.
Okay.
And they're projected in 5 years to be 121% of their capacity, which would be 735 students.
Okay. Okay, and this new building will serve, will have design capacity of 800 students?
Yes, what we've given you is 400 students currently zoned to Lakeview and Edison, and attending Lakeview and Edison live in our proposed zone, which that's not final. We might make some adjustments in that zone. There are another 100 children that live in that area that are not attending their currently zoned school that may decide to go into the new school. We also
How many children was that? I'm sorry.
Close to 100 other students who are currently choosing to attend other zone schools.
Okay. So you have roughly as much as 500 children who could go to this school. And that leaves you with a growth capacity of something on the order of 300 children.
Sure.
Is that going to be enough?
We think so. We hope that it is. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be because we're not creating a very large zone in terms of area.
Okay. Well, has planning given you any growth projections for that area that you could rely on in terms of land development and growth?
Ryan. This is Ryan Latimer, also from our student assignment office, who used to work in the planning department.
We use some of planning's data when we put together our own 5-year projections. We look at building permits, and we look at the available zoned land, the vacant acreage, and what the build-out would be as it sits today. And then we also look at kind of a cohort survival model with our students, and we combine the two to get our 5-year projections.
Okay, and so what is your 5-year projection for?
The numbers Larry just gave you, the 975 and the 735 for Edison.
Okay, but for the new Smith Springs School, what's your 5-year projection there?
We haven't done one specifically for that school zone at this time.
We haven't finalized the zone yet, so.
Well, how do you know it's going to be big enough? I guess because that's been our problem, right? Is that we build a school and then it's too small pretty quickly?
In certain areas that grow extremely fast, yes.
Okay, and this is an area that's growing pretty fast, isn't it, Councilman? Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman
Okay.
Devar.
If you can take a look at the map in the handout, if you look at most of the area where the green is located in the center is where the school property is proposed. If you look at most of the orange around there, that is all core property. None of that is going to be developable. So the density has to come from where there's already homes. I don't know where that density is going to be. There's no more planned subdivisions in that area that I'm aware of. All of the growth is from Edison Elementary and Hobson toward the southeast part of Davidson County. And now, I really believe that's one of the reasons I wanted to get our planning people involved, because they need to be determining where the growth of this county is before we go out and decide where we're going to try to put a school.
Councilman and Council Lady, that is a good point. This is on the planning committee's agenda also, so that may be a better conversation to have in that committee with the planning staff here.
Well, I will ask the questions in that committee as well, but with the planning staff. But I'm not on this committee, but I'm going to probably support the councilman's motion for deferral tomorrow. We had talked about having a meeting in education so that we could talk through some of these issues and concerns, and if the district sponsor is concerned about it, and the option's been extended, there's no harm done here by extending it another 2 weeks. And I would urge the committee to defer it.
Thank you, Council Lady. Thank you, gentlemen. Councilman Tiger.
2 other quick questions, Mr. Chair. The schools outside the Lakeview and Edison zone and the site of this proposed, Larry, don't go far. Are those schools, whichever the next school's over, are they also at capacity?
Yes, sir. All the schools out there are at capacity. In fact, elementary schools district-wide average 96% of their capacity.
So there's no unused capacity in this area that zone lines could be shifted?
That is correct.
What is the proposed starting and ending time for the school? How does it impact rush hour?
Start time is 8 to 3, is that correct? For the all elementary schools.
8 to 3, so basically 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Do all the elementary schools start at that time in this zone?
Yes.
All in the district, Council.
All in the district?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dominic.
Thank you, Chairman. I had a couple of questions. One, regarding the traffic study, what calculation was used to determine those students would be transported by parents or by bus? I know that they said there would be limited impact, but was there any students included in that traffic study that were not calculated as being transported but would be walking?
They did not consider walking. They didn't break down whether it's bus or car, but they assumed that they would be traveling by vehicle.
So the traffic study anticipated every student being transported by a vehicle of some sort?
Yes.
All right. The other thing was, there's a statement here on the transportation plan that says 76 elementary schools out of those 76, 67 are on two-lane roads. How many of those two-lane roads happen to be rural, or are they in neighborhoods with sidewalks? I'd be curious to know that.
I don't have the exact number, but they're actually in all the categories. Some have sidewalks, most do not. Some are in more developed areas, some are in rural areas.
Well, one of my concerns from the start is that students would be required to walk 0.7 miles from the farthest end of the peninsula back to the school before they get to school property where there would be sidewalks. And students would be required to walk 0.5 miles from Old Smith Springs Road to the school property line coming the other direction. That was my concern. So if they're providing busing, that's a good thing to help address the safe route to students. I'm just curious how long that would last, and if there's some way of including that requirement that they provide busing until the infrastructure is addressed on that street. Can we require that?
Is that a question to the chair, Councilman, or to the school board?
Whomever can answer it, Chairman.
Councilman, we actually have a letter from Dr. Register stating that exact concern, that until such time as that the safety is met for the students through infrastructure and other means, that we'll provide transportation, signed by Dr. Register. Be happy to provide a copy to you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
Just a quick note, if it were deferred, if you said 2 meetings a month or so, even though the option has been extended now, what would that do to what effect would that have on the opening school year when you could be able to start moving these children to the new school?
I don't think it would have a major impact. The school building itself is not funded, so design is not ready to start.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Seeing no other members of council in queue, the motion to defer has already failed. We're back on the motion to approve. And I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. Next, we'll take RS 2013-670 and RS 2013-700 together. Both are being requested to be deferred to track with the budget. I'll read both captions for us. Establishes the certified tax rate of the metropolitan government is $670, and 700 ratifies the Metro Animal Control fee schedule approved by the Board of Health. And it's been properly moved to defer and seconded. In discussion on deferral? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolutions are deferred. RS 2013-672 sponsors Matthews approves an agreement with the Convention Center Authority for heating and cooling the new Music City Center. It's been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Tiger.
Mr. Reebling has been waiting for this moment for weeks, so Mr. Lackey is here, I guess, and provided some very good information, and I have a couple just follow-up questions.
Mr. Lackey? Councilman
Yes, sir.
Duvall, kind of in the sight. No, you're fine.
Bob, I think it would be interesting for you just to take a brief second and summarize the data that you sent to me for the rest of the council members as to the current debt structure and sort of history of the center. And if you could do this in a minute or so, would be great.
I would be happy to, Councilman, and once I've reached my minute, if you'd be happy to raise your hand, I'd be happy to stop.
I'll let the chair be in charge of that.
Okay. As most of you know, the district energy plant was a concept that the previous administration brought about to this council, and this council approved as a means of replacing the old Nashville thermal plant, which burned garbage in previous years, and it was a much more efficient plant that replaced the garbage burning plant and is fueled by natural gas. And this plant was designed, built, and operated, run by Constellation New Energy, and was a public-private partnership with the city and Constellation New Energy. And those bonds and the whole financial structure of that enterprise was changed to where it was shifted from where it was the city's primary responsibility to pay for the Nashville thermal plant to where a lot of the cost of that operation was shifted to where the customers would share in the payment of the cost of running that operation and significantly reduced the city's operating subsidy. Now, there's several different series of bonds that were issued. One, in 2002, the city actually issued revenue bonds to build that plant. There are additional bonds that have subsequently been issued that basically, well, first let me back up. The initial system customers were brought on in 2002, which were primarily the original Nashville thermal transfer customers, and their customer service contracts were structured in order to pay debt service on the 2002 bonds. All of the operating costs were structured to where they would shift primarily to the customers. They would pay a portion of the infrastructure costs to support the tunnels, the manholes, and all the underground structure. And it was the city's primary responsibility to pay the debts, to pay the ongoing maintenance costs of the underground structure from there forward. It was very important that the city continue to do this because the city had a very significant investment in that underground structure because the city had many buildings, including this building, and many other additional general services buildings. The state had many buildings and many private customers that did not have their own in-house heating and cooling plants. So it was very important that the city continue honoring the commitment that it had made years ago when they built Nashville Thermal, that we continue providing that heating and cooling without companies having to provide other means of providing their heating and cooling. And of course, the operating costs were structured as well as the debt service costs. So the actual subsidy that Metro government was paying for district energy was primarily comprised of unsold capacity for debt service for the 2002 bonds, unsold capacity to cover the operating cost portion of those costs. Now, since the 2002 bonds have been sold, the city has been trying to market the unsold capacity because the only way to reduce the subsidy is to market unsold capacity. Plus, any additional debt service cost that the city has had to issue, or debt service on bonds to service the underground infrastructure, is totally at the city's expense. So the information that I provided Councilman Tigert, there's 4 basic components of the DES subsidy. And over the years, we've been able to structure, the 2002A bonds, and through Mr. Riebling's effort this last year when those bonds were refunded, all of that debt service cost is now paid through customer revenues. So the second portion of the DES subsidy for the cost of paying new customers has been issued through additional general obligation bonds. The third component of the DES subsidy is the cost of maintaining what we refer to as the energy distribution system. That's the underground tunnels, manholes, and other infrastructure for those lines. And the fourth component is the operating expense, which is the unsold capacity. The bottom line, the subsidy related to the unsold capacity for fiscal 14 roughly relates to about $750,000 of your $1.9 million subsidy that's budgeted by DES. We fully expect to be able to market and sell the remaining unsold $750,000 over time. The remainder of the $1.2 million is debt service costs that we have invested in the underground infrastructure that we believe we can also offset some of that cost as we market new customers, a portion of it. We don't believe we can actually recover 100% of that cost. There's possibilities that we can get that number down maybe to $500,000, $600,000 if we're able to expand the system with additional boiler or chiller, but that will require additional capital investment. But we don't think it's prudent to do that unless we feel that there's sufficient demand to do that by expanding in the Sobro area.
Okay, so the bottom line is, in 2002 or previous, when the district energy system was proposed, I understand we had contractual obligations because of the demise of thermal to handle this and other buildings, but did any of the projections show that require this massive a subsidy for this many years?
Councilman, to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what the projections showed back during that time frame. But the projections in terms of what Nashville Thermal was showing back during that time frame was in the multi-million-dollar range.
Subsidy required from thermal.
Yes.
How would you respond to a citizen who said, okay, we have private businesses online on this system, yet the government, best case scenario right now, based on the information you gave me, best case scenario is the taxpayers are going to subsidize this operation by $1.2 million this year. Why don't we just charge these customers more money to offset what the taxpayers are having to pay?
Mm-hmm. Well, Councilman, contractually, we can't charge those customers more money because the city committed contractually that we would only charge them a certain amount annually. And they are paying, customers are paying what they committed to pay back in 2002.
Do new customers pay a higher amount?
New customers, yes. New customers are paying a portion of that infrastructure cost. And we're able to recover that investment through new customers. But initial system customers were locked in as a part of their original deal.
Forever? There was no...
For 30 years.
For 30 years?
Not forever, but 30 years.
For 30 years. I guess that was the main reason I wanted you to be here. Not only, I think this history lesson has been valuable, but to try to see how we as a government got to the stage where taxpayers had to subsidize the operations of both public but also private institutions.
Now, Councilman, we are hopeful that as demand for district energy pushes out in the Sobro area, that we may be able to market additional demand for district energy to where additional investment may be a prudent thing in the future. But again, we're not pushing that unless there's sufficient demand to do that.
Are there comparisons of your services versus the Nashville Electric Service, Piedmont Gas, comparable, and the cost of buying equipment and long-term maintenance? Are we a cheaper alternative?
Yes, sir, we are, and we go through that analysis every time with a brand new customer and prove to those customers that DES is a much more economical advantage to them.
So how in the world do we have any unused capacity if this is such a good deal?
Well, in some cases, Councilman, it's difficult to push that capacity because we have to go through a hydraulic analysis. Most of the customers that we have to serve have to be south of Broad because of pushing that capacity uphill. So we go through that, and again, it's just like convincing someone that that natural gas is a better option than electricity. We have to prove that to them, and some people are from Missouri, and you just have to show them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. See no other council members in queue. I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-693, sponsors Matthews and Pardue, approves agreements with the cities of Belmead, Berry Hill, Forest Hills, Goodlettsville, and Oak Hill pertaining to the performance of municipal functions. It's been properly moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-694, sponsors Gilmore and Stein, appropriates up to $550,000 in community development block grant funds for improvements at Edmondson Park. Been properly moved, seconded. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-695, sponsors Gilmore, Stein, and Matthews, approves an application for a grant of $25,000 from the National Endowment for the Arts to the Metro Arts Commission for public art within Edmondson Park and a companion educational curriculum. It's been properly moved and seconded. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-696, sponsors Matthews, Bennett, and Lancaster, approves an application for renewal of a state grant of $1,451,003 to the state trial courts to fund the Davidson County Community Corrections Program. Been properly moved and seconded. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-697, sponsors Matthews, Bennett, and Lancaster, approves a federal grant of $28,193.26 to the Metro Police Department and the Sheriff's Office to purchase bulletproof vests.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-698, sponsors Matthews, Claiborne, and Bennett, approves the Second Amendment to a lease agreement between the Metro government and Greensboro 1 LP for the Police Department's domestic violence program by reducing the rent amount and requiring Metro to pay utility costs. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-699, sponsors Matthews and Claiborne, approves a continuation grant of $20,000 from the Metro Development and Housing Agency to the Metro Historical Commission to perform environmental review of historic properties. Been properly moved and seconded. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-701, sponsors Weiner Matthews, approves an agreement between the Metro Board of Health and Matthews Memorial United Methodist Church to provide a location where current and potential women, infants, and children participants can attend classes. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-702, sponsors Weiner Matthews and Lancaster, approves a grant of $23,409.74 from the Key Alliance to the Homelessness Commission to provide housing for chronically homeless persons. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-703, sponsors Moore, Gilmore, and Matthews, approves an amendment to the current lease agreement between Metro Government and MFP Baseball, LLC, for lease of the Greer Stadium site for use by the Nashville Sounds minor league baseball team by extending the lease for an additional 3 years. Been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring these comments because of some comments I got, and I've talked to some members of the administration about this. It has to do with contract extensions, and it's a 3-year agreement that we have now would push the Sounds into the next mayor's term if it goes that long. And what the comment that I got by a constituent was, why did the Sounds owner opt for 3 years? And the lease amendment indicates that the Sound spent more than $2 million since 2009, and the Metro will reimburse 50% of the Sound's capital expenditures over the next 3 years, but not to exceed $250,000. And what I'd like to know is this a form of leveraging Nashville until somebody's demand is met? And why is the Sound not paying rent instead of the city paying or reimbursing the Sounds based on capital improvement spending? And finally, that we still think Sufferdale is the best option. I talked to Mr. Reebling about that, and so he can comment on those issues.
Let me think what order to take them in.
Any way you want them.
I may forget some of them, so remind me. As it relates to the improvements to the stadium, I think that currently the agreement is that they can be reimbursed for up to $250,000 of improvements, but they have to spend $250 to get $250. And I think the Sounds ownership, and I might add that Mr. Frank Ward, sort of the managing partner for the group, is in the audience today if you want to address anything to Mr. Ward. I think the thought was that because of the age of the facility, they didn't want to continue to put a lot of money into the facility, and so if they spend less than $250, they still would get reimbursed up to the same amount that they put into it, which we felt was reasonable going forward over the next several years. Help me out, Councilman. The other question was as it relates to the.
Why did they elect 3 years instead of the extension 5 years?
5 years.
Like that before?
I think that was sort of a discussion topic back and forth between us and the Sounds as to what the proper lease extension should be. I think that the Sounds didn't want to go longer because clearly they don't think that Greer is the long-term best place for minor league baseball in Nashville. They do also have some league requirements that they have a place to play. So sort of a balancing act between a 1-year deal, which would not be acceptable to the league, and a 5-year deal, which everyone thought was too long. So we sort of mutually agreed on a 3-year arrangement.
So is the reimbursement that they get reimbursed $250,000? Is that could be put into let them pay rent and then reimburse their expenditures rather than, like, a lot of people think they're not paying rent, know what I'm saying?
There is a provision for rent, right? There is a provision in the lease that they would pay rent, but it's tied to the financial results of the team, and for several years at least, the team's financial results have not resulted in any lease payment to the city. So the agreement to put some capital improvements into the lease has been in there forever, since I can recall. And so this simply, the only modification was that before, again, they had to spend $250 to get $250. Actually, I think they had to spend $500 to get $250. Wasn't it? They had to spend $500 to get $250, and I think they felt that that's, the facility's age. They don't want to put that much money into it. So if they spend $100, then the city would only be obligated to put $100 in.
Okay, and finally, do you think that Sufferdale Ballpark is still the best option for them to move to?
Personally, I think it's a good location for a baseball stadium, but that's my personal opinion.
Mine too. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no other council members in the queue, I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. Let's see, what was that? 703. RS 2013-704, sponsors Matthews, approves an amendment to a contract with Red River Service Corporation for the collection of solid waste by reducing the existing unit price of the semi and fully automated services by 20 cents per unit and extending the initial term of the contract for an additional 10 years. Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-705, sponsors Matthews, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Vernice Bryan against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $38,936. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-706, sponsors Matthews, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Ronald Flanoy against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $50,000. Been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our analysis states there is no specific law allowing driver of an emergency vehicle, fire truck, to exit the street and to go through, in case of an obstruction, through private property, in this case a gas station. Is there a need for such a law, or is that even allowable? And that might be a question for the fire department, I would guess.
It may be Mr. Cooper. Could you attempt to?
There's no metro ordinance that specifically addresses it, and there's no state law that provides protection for emergency vehicles when they're not using their lights and sirens. In this case, the fire truck had the lights on, but not the siren.
Would it have been different if he had both?
Possibly, yes.
I think Mr. Solomon's got an astute comment to make.
No, I was just going to say, Councilman, that this was a little bit of a tough case. But if you look at kind of what the driver tried to do, he really tried to kind of get right in between those goalposts of the gas station pumps, and even if the sirens had been on, probably would have been better, but still probably a reasonable. Would a reasonable person have tried to thread that needle so closely? So it's a tough case, and I think that's why we ended up settling it. But the law doesn't really favor us, but it's just one of those things where I think the guy made a split-second judgment call and maybe could have done it a little bit differently, but it's hard to really second guess. So there was an active alarm going on at the time.
So would any law change put us in a better position? I mean, if I've got a family member that's hurt and they can see him over there, but they can't get to it without going through this parking lot or thread the needle through this goalpost, I want them to do that, quite frankly.
But you don't want to do it at the expense of hurting somebody else.
Absolutely.
And that's there's always going to be a judgment that's required here, and that's a tough one. And so this might have been one where, given a second chance, he might not decide to thread the needle like he did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Seeing no other council members, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-707, sponsors Matthews, authorizes the Department of Law to accept $16,666.66 to compromise and settle the Metropolitan Government's claim against Christina Yates. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Council Lady Berry.
Just quickly, Chair, can you read that number again?
$16,666.66.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
A lot of sixes. Seeing no other council members in the queue, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. We're now on to bills on second reading. The first bill, let's see. Okay. Yeah, the first bill that we have is 2013-360, sponsors Banks, Matthews, and Evans. Amends the Metro Code to direct the Department of Human Resources to conduct a compensation and benefits study for the mayor, vice mayor, and members of council, and there is a proposed amendment. Been properly moved and seconded. Councilmember Banks, would you like to explain?
Basically, all this does is move up the time frame for completing the compensation study. Of course, this goes along with some of the compensation studies that are being done across Metro. And I think for the number of folks here on council, it might be reasonable to think they could complete that by March of 2014, and we might be able to respond to it accordingly through charter revision if we wanted to. So it just gives us that time.
Right. Thank you, Councilman Banks. Seeing no other discussion, we're voting on the amendment. And all in favor? All opposed? The amendment passes. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. Bill 2013-420, sponsors Maynard and Tigert. amends the Metro Code to create a small business economic development incentive grant program. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. Bill 2013-423, sponsors Moore, Gilmore, and Claiborne, approves an agreement with the state for an exchange of the old Ben West Library property for the Tennessee Preparatory School property. And this, we have a request from the administration for deferral. It's been properly moved to defer. One meeting deferral. It's been moved and seconded for a 1 meeting deferral. Council Lady Allen, did you want to speak on deferral? All right. All in favor? All opposed? Bill is deferred. 1 meeting. Bill 2013-432, sponsors Matthews, adopts the property tax levy for fiscal year 2013-2014. Been properly. Yes, we do need a motion to approve and re-refer this. It's been properly moved and second to approve and re-refer to Budget and Finance. Council Lady. Okay. Any other council members? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill is approved and will be re-referred. BL 2013-435, sponsors Bennett, Claiborne, and others, approves a lease agreement between the Metro Board of Public Education and Liberty Collegiate Academy for use of the former Jerry Baxter School located at 3515 Gallatin Road. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. BL 2013-436, sponsors Baker, Bedney, and others, approves a lease agreement between the Metro Board of Public Education and Nashville Preparatory Academy for use of the McCain School property located at 1300 56th Avenue North. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. BL 2013-440, sponsors Claiborne and Lancaster, authorizes the disposition of 3 parcels of property adjacent to 28th Avenue North, previously acquired as part of the construction of the 28th Avenue connector. There is a proposed amendment on this bill. Moving the amendment, it's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Cooper, would you like to explain the amendment, please?
The amendment corrects the name of the fund that the proceeds of the sale will be credited to.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? The amendment passes. Have a motion to approve as amended and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Bill passes as amended. BL 2013-442, sponsors Scott Davis and Bennett and others, authorizes the acquisition of easements for 41 properties for the Haynes Park and Maynard Place stormwater projects. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Bill passes. BL 2013-443, sponsors Potts and Claiborne, authorizes the acquisition of easements for properties located at 574 and 592 Bell Road and 5304 Bellcrest Drive. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Bill passes, and that no, that doesn't. Another page. I'm jumping the gun. BL 2013-444, sponsors Pardue, Potts, and Claiborne, authorizes the acquisition of easements for 4 properties located at 608, 612, 613, and 617 Sunny Slope Court. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. BL 2013-452, sponsors Bennett and Anthony Davis, amends the Metro Code provisions governing the animal control fee schedule. Been properly moved and seconded. Council Lady Berry?
Thank you. With this fee schedule, I know that we have deferred some others to track with the budget. Is this going to be on track to be? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Bill passes. BL 2013-359, sponsors Matthews, Gilmore, and Dow, approves various agreements associated with the transfer of the Renaissance Hotel located next to the existing convention center. It's not the right caption. Yeah. Should that not be on the agenda? Okay, 359, it should not be on the agenda.
Yeah, so that concludes it.
362, so now we have concluded the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Thank you.